Hi, welcome to West Coast Supercars and Classics. Today we're going to be looking at the Mazda RX-8, a very interesting car. This one happens to be our own personal daily driver. It's an 05 and it has about 131,000 kilometers on it. I won't be taking it for a drive today because I don't have time, but I'm going to give you an overview of the car, what it's like to own it, and we'll just talk about the various features that it has. All right, let's have a look. First off, the RX-8 has a really striking design. I personally don't think it has a bad angle. I think it's a really lovely looking car. This one is 13 years old, but the design actually came out in about 2001 and they started production in, I think it was 2002 for a 2003 model year, and then it was produced until 2012. They went through a few different editions. This one is a first gen. They did some upgrades and changes to it for the second generation, but this one's a first gen. So this is powered by 1.3 liter, what they call the Renesas multi-side port rotary engine. It's a 1.3 liter engine. It's considered to be a 1.3 liter engine, at least according to Mazda, but some people argue that because there's 3 faces on the rotor, that it's actually triple that. So it would be like a 3 point something, almost like a 4 liter engine. We'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. All right, so coming around this side, let's just look at the shape of it. As you can see, it's got a very unique design. You have a normal front door, in this case the driver's door, really well finished car, lots of courtesy lights, stuff like that. And then you have this really unique feature, which is a rear suicide door. So technically speaking, this car is actually a 4-door car, and it has very decent accommodation for 4 passengers. That's my daughter's child seat back there, so you can see there's room for this kind of thing, and there's actually quite a bit of leg room. A lot more than in our 911. All right, this particular one is a GT model. These are leather faces on the seats here. I think there's kind of a leatherette on this side. And as you can see, this door is well finished as well. We can open it up here, it's pretty fun. Little vent window, reminds me of the old VWs we used to have, kind of similar. I've got the winter tires on this thing on the old original rims, but I have another set of newer rims with the summer tires on it. Now coming around the back, I actually really like the look of the back. I think it's quite a bit like the Honda S2000. You've got your twin exhausts here. Rear spoiler is an addition to this car. It's got a fairly decent sized trunk. It's not very deep this way, it's quite narrow. So if you're one of those kind of people who likes to have big huge suitcases, forget about it. This is not the car for you, because this is a fairly narrow opening. You want to use duffel bags or smaller bags, and you can fit a lot of stuff in here actually, including skis, because there is a ski pass-through right there. Oh, you'll also notice inside here there is no spare tire. The RX-8 actually comes standard with a electric pump, and I carry in the car some tools and a repair kit, tire repair kit, just in case. As you can see, this car has been used for a number of years, so it's definitely got some signs of use, like all these rock chips on the front, stuff like that. You know, just wear and tear. And then where is it? Where else was it? Somebody kissed the fender here, parallel parking, and ripped through my car cover actually. Didn't leave me a note or anything like that. That was not very nice. This one has the retractable moonroof. All right, let's have a seat inside. So as you'd expect, you have every convenience. There's lots of controls on the steering wheel. This is for your cruise control. This is for your stereo. All your door controls here, your mirror controls. Really straightforward, really well laid out. I like this car. And you have your kind of whimsical shift knob here, which has the rotary shape. There's a lot of that theme in this car, including the seats right there, which also have kind of that rotary shape. For those of you who don't know, A rotary engine has no pistons and no valves. So let's start her up. Oops. Okay, there we go. All right. Pretty straightforward instrument cluster here. As you can see, yeah, we've got 131,402 clicks on this car. You can actually adjust this to go between miles per hour and kilometers per hour, and so that's kind of handy, the speedometer, because there's only this speedometer right here. You have this huge tachometer right there, and I'll just blip it for you. You can see the red line is actually 8,500. Pretty nifty. 6-speed shifter. It's got an excellent shifter, really nice shifter. Actually good stereo system too. I like the stereo system here. We don't have nav system or anything. We just bring a GPS if we need it. All right. I'm going to shut it off and then we're going to look at the engine. Once you open the engine bay up here, you see all the covers for various components here. Your battery fuses over here. This is probably your CPU, something like that, I think. Coolant overflow tank is right here. Your windshield wiper tank is right there. It's got a large windshield wiper tank, and also at the front you have headlight washers, so those pop out, but they use a lot of washer fluid. So there's this cover here over top the engine. I'm just going to pop that out. I just loosened it and I'm going to lift it away. And there is the heart of the car, the beating heart. You can see your alternator there. Now, if you look at the front of the car here, okay, it's not a terribly long car. It's got about a 100-inch wheelbase or something. So going back from there, have a look at how far back that engine is. It's really far back, and it's down low. It's small and light, which is the hallmark of the rotary engine. They call this a front mid rear drive placement. So that is to do with the engine being so far back this way and so low. Keeps the center of gravity down. Obviously you got your oil filler there. Your air box here. And the spark plugs are way over on this side and they're really hard to get to. You actually have to take your wheel off on this side, jack it up, and get inside using a little flap and put your tools in that side if you want to get to the spark plugs. The Renesas engine produces roughly 230 horsepower at 8,500 RPM in North America anyways, and this is for the 6-speed manual. The automatic had different specs. I think it was around 200 horsepower. The torque on this engine is not spectacular. It's just under 160 pounds-feet. But when you're underway and the engine's on the boil, you really don't notice it that much. Obviously, it's not a straight line pavement scorcher, but it's a nice track car. It's extremely well balanced, 50-50 weight balance, has a lot of high-tech features. As I mentioned before, the extremely high red line really helps you out because you don't have to shift as much. And I notice when I'm driving the 911, which has a 6,000 something RPM rev limit, I run out of engine RPMs really quickly. Like I noticed in second and third gear, wow, you hit the rev limiter just right away compared to this car, which goes a lot higher. So on the track, I find that very useful for track days and stuff. And you certainly won't find this to be a slow car. It's definitely not a slow car. It's just not, as I say, it's not a drag car by any means. And I think guys who want like super high horsepower cars, they're just, this is not it. This is a different experience. It's a lot more like the Miata, I would say. And we did have a Miata as well. This just has a higher performance envelope than a Miata. It's more comfortable, it's quieter. You know, it seats 4 adults and you can go cruising comfortably for days in this thing. It's a great highway cruising car. Downsides of this car really are, for the amount of power, the gas mileage is not very good. It's not obviously as bad or worse than a lot of vehicles out there. It's just that for the class of car, for the performance of the engine, it's not particularly stellar. And it was for that reason, and also because of fairly high emissions and problems meeting emissions standards, that Mazda had to discontinue producing the rotary engine. Although apparently they're rumored to have another one. This is always happening. There's always a rumor that they're going to come out with another car, but I will believe it when I see it. And the real question for you today is, will the RX-8 become a collectible car or not? I happen to think that it might, because they're really useful cars. They are a sports car, but they're practical. They're cheap as heck to buy. And the engine is fairly straightforward. You know, this one has a new engine in it as of about 3 years ago. I bought it used. I bought the car used, so I didn't own it from new. But they do consume oil. You have to make sure you check the oil regularly every 2 or 3 fills, because part of their operations to lubricate the apex seals is to consume oil. And it also has an extra oil cooler, which is on the right hand, or actually the driver's side over here. There's an oil cooler. This car can be driven hard. The engine can be really revved, not a problem at all, because it's a not a reciprocating engine. It's not changing directions all the time. It's just spinning around, and you'll find it's quite addictive because it's smooth and it really likes to rev. So they're quite fun cars to own, and I think for that reason there's a good chance, especially if Mazda does not ever produce another rotary engine car, I think there's a good chance these things will hold their value and perhaps increase in value. And I certainly hope that people will take the kind of interest they have taken in the RX-7 series, because you see a lot of the Type 1s and the FDs and so on like that around, and low mileage unmodified versions are worth a lot of money these days. Hard to find, right? I think they produce probably about 70,000 of these cars for North America and Canada. I don't know the exact figures because I couldn't really find them. But in any case, it's a car you might want to have a look at if you're into really interesting high performance cars. Last thing we're going to do is just have a listen to the exhaust. All right, now we had a little listen to the exhaust. You can tell that it doesn't sound like any other car out there. I will be taking it out for a good spin probably tomorrow or the day after, so stay tuned for another video on this car, driving it. And thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.